Hello and welcome to Quest Recapped. Today, we will be going through the 2007 animated comedy drama film, Ratatouille. The movie begins with an advertisement featuring Auguste Gusteau, a French chef who owns a 5-star restaurant in Paris. He is the youngest chef to receive a 5-star rating, and his book Anyone Can Cook is best-selling worldwide. Everyone adores Gusteau, except the food critic Anton Ego, who has tried to tarnish Gusteau's reputation throughout the years. In the next scene, we see a rat named Remy who has a keen sense of taste and smell. One day, while Remy's father is eating an apple, Remy stops him, suspecting a smell that turns out to be rat poison. Due to this, Remy's father is impressed, and he appoints Remy the role of poison checker from that day forward. Unlike the other rats, Remy dislikes garbage and is captivated by humans. His father prevents him from going into the kitchen and asks him to stay far from humans since they are dangerous. Despite this, Remy spends several nights in an old lady's home, reading Gusteau's cookbook and watching cooking-related shows. One day, Remy discovers a mushroom and some cheese which he decides to cook. He and Emile then climb the old lady's house so he may use the chimney to cook his meal. However, thunder strikes them, knocking them to the ground. But fortunately, the mushroom is already cooked. Remy wants to add saffron to it, but it is in the kitchen, so they carefully sneak inside. Moments after, Remy sees Gusteau on TV and finds out that Anton Ego has given Gusteau's restaurant a poor rating, costing it one of its 5 stars. It turns out that Gusteau was devastated by this incident and died soon after. This news disturbs Remy, but suddenly the old lady awakens and notices the rats. She quickly draws her shotgun and begins shooting at them. In a panic, Emile runs for the roof, where the rat colony resides. As she shoots the roof, the ceiling collapses and hundreds of rats appear, terrifying the old lady. Soon after, the rats begin to flee, but Remy stays behind to retrieve Gusteau's book. The rats run into a river on small rafts, while Remy uses the cookbook as a floating aid. However, the strong currents in the sewers separate Remy from the group, leaving him alone. Hours later, Remy is hungry as he looks through the cookbook. Suddenly, he hallucinates Gusteau speaking to him. The imaginary Gusteau advises him to leave the canal and go in search of food. Remy climbs and goes through the pipes and vents. Eventually, he reaches the roof and finds out that he has been under Paris all along, just in front of Gusteau's restaurant. The scene then shifts inside the kitchen of Gusteau's restaurant. There, we see the head chef Skinner questioning a boy named Alfredo Linguini. Alfredo turns out to be the son of Gusteau's recently deceased old flame, Renata. Alfredo gives Skinner a letter his mother wrote in hopes of securing a job at the restaurant. However, Skinner ignores the letter and recruits Alfredo as a garbage boy, ordering him to work right away. Sometime later, Remy is peering into the kitchen through a window. Suddenly, he notices Alfredo cleaning, who then unintentionally hits the soup, causing it to collapse. He tries to correct his error by adding water and various other things. Remy is horrified by this and he accidentally falls into the kitchen sink. When Alfredo checks on the soup, he immediately opens the window to vomit. Remy tries to run through the window, passing by the soup, which smells awful. He then adds all kinds of spices, vegetables, and whatever else is required to make it appetizing enough, but he is quickly spotted by Alfredo. Just then, Skinner notices Alfredo tampering with the soup and begins to chastise him. He then tries to stop the waiter from serving the soup, but it's too late. A bowl is served to a culinary critic, who loves the soup and compliments the chef. Despite this, Skinner remains enraged with Alfredo and is on the verge of firing him. However, a female chef named Colette defends Alfredo, saying that firing him for making something good goes against the restaurant's motto. Skinner then orders Alfredo to prepare the soup again the next day, but this time he will keep a close eye on him. Moments after, they all spot Remy in the kitchen and try to kill him. However, Alfredo grabs Remy and traps it in a container, claiming that he will kill it outside. He then takes Remy to a river but cannot bring himself to kill the rat. He knows the rat prepared the soup and that he will need him again to duplicate the recipe. Noticing that Remy seems to understand him, Alfredo requests his help and takes the rat home. The following morning, when Alfredo wakes up, he finds that Remy has prepared breakfast for him. Following that, the two rush to work and Alfredo hides Remy in his clothes. Skinner then instructs Alfredo to prepare the soup again. Alfredo tries to cook while Remy supervises, but Remy bites him to keep him from using the wrong ingredients. Later, Remy tugs Alfredo's hair, and Alfredo bends his back flexibly and walks under the tray. Alfredo is confused as to how Remy did it. Fortunately, they find a way to cook, and Remy can control Alfredo with his hair. The duo decide that this is the best technique for them and spend the next few days practicing cooking in their leisure time. Eventually, they overcome Skinner's challenges and recreate the soup. Colette then takes Alfredo under her wing and begins teaching him the technique of chopping vegetables professionally and keeping a tidy kitchen station. Alfredo tries to get close to Colette, but she is harsh and frequently scolds him. Meanwhile, Skinner is in his office when he notices Alfredo's mother's letter. As he reads it, he becomes so terrified that he calls his lawyer. It turns out that Alfredo is Gusto's son, and even Alfredo has no idea about it. According to Gusto's will, the restaurant will pass to the sous chef if no heir appears within 2 years. Since the sous chef was Skinner, he does not want Alfredo to take over the restaurant. The lawyer advises Skinner to keep Alfredo under his watch while the DNA test is confirmed. As Alfredo's popularity grows, a group of customers arrives at the restaurant and requests that he make something new for them. The staff is terrified, but Skinner decides to have Alfredo create an old Gusto-style sweetbread recipe. Skinner is aware that Gusto deemed that recipe a failure and hopes that it will be Alfredo's doom. Soon later, Colette begins to follow the recipe, but as Remy advises, Alfredo drastically modifies it. Later, Skinner is surprised when the waiter breaks in and reports that customers love the new recipe and that there are more orders for it. Later that night, Skinner invites Alfredo into his office and takes out a bottle of rare wine from his desk. He then gets Alfredo drunk to persuade him to reveal his secrets but gets nowhere. Meanwhile, Remy is enjoying his meal when he notices a weird figure in the garbage cans. He takes up a knife and walks towards it, but it turns out to be his brother, Emile, and the two hug each other. When Remy discovers his brother eating from the garbage, he sneaks into the kitchen refrigerator and steals food for him. Emile then takes Remy to the new colony, where his father is ecstatic to see his son alive. However, he becomes enraged when Remy says that he wants to leave the colony. His father accuses him of behaving like a human, and in an attempt to persuade him, he takes Remy to a rat-killing shop where several dead rats are displayed. He then expresses his belief that humans and rats must always be enemies. On the other hand, Remy has a different opinion and says that he won't change his mind. The following morning, Remy arrives at the restaurant and discovers Alfredo sleeping in the kitchen. Remy slips under his cap and pulls his hair to stand him up, but Alfredo is still sleeping. Just then, Colette walks into the kitchen and starts talking to Alfredo, but he begins snoring, which upsets her. Colette hits him, and he quickly awakens. She tells him how she was wrong for helping him and exits the restaurant. Alfredo also grabs his hat and dashes after her. He then tries to tell her the truth, but Remy is desperate to remain hidden. Therefore, he forces Alfredo forward so that he ends up kissing Colette and she kisses him back. Meanwhile, Skinner's lawyer informs him that Alfredo and Gusto's DNA has been matched. Since firing Alfredo could result in legal issues, the lawyer advises him to wait until the deadline, which is in 3 days. The restaurant will be technically his, and he can fire Alfredo whenever he wants. That evening, Remy then comes upon Emile and a few other rats outside the restaurant. Remy is irritated that Emile snitched on him and goes inside to get food for other rats. He sneaks into Skinner's office to get the key to the food locker and discovers documents revealing Alfredo's parentage. Remy tries to steal the paperwork, but Skinner spots him fleeing again. Despite a diligent chase, Remy escapes, and Alfredo eventually discovers the truth. When Skinner returns to the restaurant, Alfredo, who is the new owner, instantly fires him. Days later, Alfredo moves to a larger house and gives Remy a better spot in front of the Eiffel Tower, which he adores. Alfredo's fame grows, Skinner gets desperate, and Remy continues to steal food from the kitchen for his brother and friends. During a press conference, Alfredo ignores the fact that Remy is helping him, which irritates Remy, and he starts to pull Alfredo's hair. Alfredo removes his hat and places it on the table to stop Remy when the restaurant doors open and Anton Ego enters. He then challenges Alfredo that he will come back the next night to test the food. Alfred later scolds Remy for his actions during the press conference. He then yells aggressively and throws Remy out of the kitchen. Later, enraged Remy organizes the rest of his rat clan to raid the restaurant. Moments after, Alfredo enters the kitchen unexpectedly and apologizes to Remy for his behavior. As he continues to explain his dire situation, suddenly Emile falls down, causing a noise. When Alfredo opens the refrigerator and discovers all the rats, he becomes enraged. He immediately throws out all of the rats and warns Remy not to return, or he will be treated the way restaurants are meant to treat pests. The next evening, Emile finds Remy near the restaurant, trying to peek inside. Emile then tries to take a strangely placed slice of cheese, but Remy notices that it's a trap and he gets trapped trying to save his brother. Turns out that the trap was designed by Skinner, who wants Remy to work with him to produce new frozen foods. Meanwhile, Anton arrives at the restaurant, and the team begins cooking. The waiter takes Anton's order, who orders anything the cook dares to serve. Skinner, who is disguised as a guest, also orders the same thing as Anton. Remy is still locked in the car's truck during this time, but soon, Emile and his father break him out of the cage. Remy then rushes into the restaurant to help Alfredo. Later, the chefs are all scared in the kitchen, and Alfredo can't help because Remy isn't there. As soon as Remy opens the kitchen door, the kitchen crew attacks him. But Alfredo intervenes and tells them the entire truth. Hearing this, the whole team exits the kitchen, including Colette. Alfredo then goes to his office, certain that his restaurant is doomed. Moments after, Remy's father arrives and acknowledges that he was mistaken, and seeing Alfredo stand up for Remy has changed his view of humans. He then enlists the entire rat colony to help him in preparing the food according to Remy's orders. Just then, a health inspector arrives and discovers the kitchen is infested with rats. The inspector is then swarmed by rats led by Remy's father, who ties him up and locks him in the pantry. Realizing that someone will have to wait tables, Alfredo quickly slips on a pair of roller skates and begins serving the guests. A while later, Colette changes her mind and returns to the restaurant. She asks Remy what he wants to make for Anton Ego, and Remy decides to make a ratatouille dish. When Anton takes a piece of the ratatouille, he is instantly taken back to his childhood when his mother made the same dish. An enraged Skinner storms into the kitchen, where he is tied and thrown into the pantry with the health inspector. The excellent meal warms Anton's heart, and he insists on thanking the chef, but he is informed that he must wait until all the other customers have left. Later, Anton hears the whole truth from Alfredo, Colette, and Remy, but he leaves without saying anything. The next day, he writes a beautiful review for Gusto's, proclaiming the chef to be the best in Paris, but leaves out his true identity. After Skinner and the health inspector are released, the restaurant is closed due to a violation of the health protocol. Anton also loses his job and credibility as a result of his praise for a rat-infested restaurant. However, he happily sponsors a new bistro, La Ratatouille, run by Alfredo and Colette. It has dining rooms for both people and rats, as well as a kitchen specially designed for Remy to cook. We have come to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Kindly like, subscribe, and share this video. If you also have thoughts you intend to share, kindly leave them in the comment section. See you in the next video.